All right. Welcome everybody to our second conversation with Conversations with Cacao. And this month we are so blessed and excited to have Conversations with Cacao featuring Cacao Laboratory. And we have Florencia Fridman with us here for this deepening that we have this time together to really connect. And she is one of the co-founders of Cacao Laboratory and is an overall amazing being, full of wisdom and light and radiance. And I am so blessed to have this time to talk with you right now. So welcome and thank you for being here. It's really an honor.
So much love. It's such an honor for me to be here sharing about this beautiful medicine that is so essential right now for us to continue embodying the language of the heart and getting to know ourselves on a deeper level, and from there continue celebrating this beautiful life that we have been given. Well, thank you for creating such a beautiful container for us to explore the medicine and have this beautiful exchange and conversation with the spirit.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Very excited. So I'm going to tune in and just feel like what is the resonant spot to begin our conversation. I feel like how about we just start at the beginning? So what has your journey been and what has led you to be in the spot where you are right now, and the passion that has guided you throughout your life to be here?
So in the Maya Cosmovision, I work a lot with the Maya Cosmovision through the guidance of the Mayan Suto Heal tradition, and also connected with the Zapata tradition, which is a community in the Amazon between Ecuador and Peru. And I find that the Mayan tradition has allowed me to understand a lot of the answers of the questions that have been in my experience since a young age. And when we look at the Maya Cosmovision, we work with the Cholquij, which is the lunar calendar, and each day has a different Nahual, a different energy. I carry the energy of Tihash, which is the energy of the medicine, the healing, and also the transmuting of the negativity into harmony. And so I feel when I get asked this question of like, where did you know that cacao was your medicine, or how did you get on this path? It's like my whole life has been a path of this remembering and coming back to myself and the questions. And so I think it really began, like the moment that it clicked was definitely in Guatemala. I did a course on lucid dreaming and astral projection. It was a mystery school where you learn how to be aware of your dreams and be able to move through your dreams to receive what in the Zapata tradition they say Shimaka, the living wisdom, right? Because the wisdom that is passed down orally from generation to generation, that carries a life, just like our genes, our genetics are passed down from one generation to the next. So is this living wisdom. So the mystery school was very much a place for us to explore the unseen from a conscious state. And when I was doing this course, I found out that there was this thing called cacao ceremonies and that it was used in a sacred way. I come from Bariloche, which is a small town in Argentina that has a lot of chocolate. Definitely not ceremonial cacao, but so much chocolate. So when I heard about this, I grew up loving chocolate, just being indulged in it all the time. So when I found out about the ceremony, I was like, I need to explore this. And I remember I always share this, just like, and I can, every time that I share, I can feel that same sensation I felt in that moment where I opened my eyes and I was like, I'm home. Like I felt, even though I was so far away from Argentina or the United States, which for most of my life have been a place I call home, being in Guatemala, I just felt like, wow, I'm home in my temple. And it was probably one of the first times in my life where I consciously felt like I was in my own home. And so I wanted to share this with the world. And I received a vision of my brother and I doing ceremonies together. It didn't seem in that vision like it was cacao. But I remember just having this vision of him and I doing ceremonies together. And then when I came back to New York, I tried to share cacao with my brother and his girlfriend, and they were very confused about the whole thing. They were definitely not opening their hearts to cacao back then. So it kind of, I got very just, I don't want to say disappointed, but it was kind of just like, this is not what I expected. My expectations of wanting for this to expand and this to flow, and like I did in the vision, wasn't there. And I just kind of shut down the idea of continuing to work with cacao. I would still drink the medicine on my own and like, explore it, but there wasn't this calling still of like, am I able to do this? And I was working at a restaurant at the time, and so I remember I served on somebody who was traveling the world trying different chocolates and like being able to know like what kind of flavors were coming and choosing different chocolates for I guess a company that he was working for. Again, not ceremonial cacao. But when I heard that, I remember coming home to my roommate and being like, this guy's job is to travel the world and eat chocolate all day. Like, how is this possible? And she was like, Florencia, you can do that too. Like, you just have to set your mind to it. And shortly after, we went to South Africa, my roommate and I, to visit another friend. And on that trip, I remember all the three of us were just like kind of created a retreat experience for ourselves where we were doing this breath work. It's a very beautiful pranayama practice that you do every 3 months, that kind of restructures your energy. We were doing, like, of course, cacao every day. We were setting intentions, connecting to the beach. And I saw a vision there of like, okay, I want to do this. I want to commit to this. And I have no idea how to start a business. I have no idea what steps to take. New York was my home, but didn't have a connection to the spiritual practice of cacao in the way that the Mayan tradition would. So there was a lot more questions than like assurance at that point, but my calling and my heart was so much stronger than any of that doubt. So I came home to my brother and I told him, I want to do this with you. Like, I want you to help me create this vision, this movement. I want to be able to bring cacao to New York and share with my family, with my friends, like with my environment. And my brother is Akpu in the Mayan cosmovision. His vision is, just like the sun right here. It is just beyond like what the physical mind can grasp. And so he was like, okay, I'll do this with you, but we're going to create a movement, And so he wasn't just thinking about our friends and our family. He really wanted to bring this to the world. So that's how Cacao Lab came to be. We went down to Guatemala looking for a farm, and we found a beautiful gathering where we met Nana Marina, and Tata Pedro wasn't there, but we went to them later to visit him during that trip. We met an amazing friend, Daniel Garcia, who's a filmmaker and who then made our Cacao Food of the Gods documentary. And so all of the pieces kind of came to be. And again, it wasn't just that moment that I had my first ceremony where my path began. The calling for my spiritual path and the connection to the sacred was really from a very young age. My mom worked with Osho practices. A lot of my family are devotees of Sai Baba, who's a guru from India. I grew up, having chants in the mornings as like the background music, and in the car, there was always the setting of intentions of having like a good drive and, kirtan with my family, going to see Krishna Das. So this was always just present. I started rebirthing, which is a breathing modality, at the age of 8. And like all of my family does this practice and facilitates. So it's hard to say what point, but I think when we look at this spiritual path, and also for our mission, our calling, I think there's like a lot of learning lessons from this story, because I didn't have the understanding of the execution. I had the yes and my commitment to the path, and I had the questions and the communication with spirit, but I didn't need a formula to know how it would all unfold, because my conceptual mind was not prepared to receive what my spirit had already been working in the world of spirit. And so I think it's really important to understand when we're starting this journey to be like, what am I willing to commit to, and how much can I trust in spirit to guide me, and how do I know that my yes and my no, and how do I quiet my mind and noise that bring about the questioning of, is this really the way that I want to go, and learning how to drop into the heart for the guidance.
Yeah, that is all very powerful. Thank you for sharing all that. And yeah, as you were speaking, it's a space of like that deep refinement of self, because it's every step along the journey. It's you're birthed into this body as a soul with its own mission, with its own beingness, its own frequency, its own energy, its own template, and each step of the way is like the image that comes to mind is like when the chick is in the egg, and the saying goes that if you were to break the shell for it, it would die, because it needs to strengthen its beak, it needs to strengthen its neck in order to survive in the world. And each little peck is what strengthens the chick in order to hold and be the container, or to be in the world as a chicken, if we're going on with this analogy. But each moment in our life, each like little chant that you heard as a child, and all these initiations, it's like in your field, it's in your energy, and cultivating all of the opportunities for you to grow in this bigger way. So it's very beautiful what you offered, and the space of trust that really comes in, because when you said like you step on the path and you're like, wow, this is amazing, I want to share with the whole world, and then it's like, oh wait, not everybody's like at my level. Like, is this the right thing? And the questioning comes in, but that trust that comes from like, nope, this is what it is. And like you said, I just had questions, and that's the most powerful tool that we have, really, is that questioning, the growth questions that help us to like, what's next? How can I do this? How can I support myself? So very beautiful. I actually hadn't heard all of those pieces of your journey, so it's very nice to get a full picture, and a fuller picture. Of course, it's not the full picture, but yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, it's really interesting when I get asked that question, like how did you get on this path? Because there's been so many pieces, and at different points, you connect with different aspects of it. But I think what's coming through right now as we share this is that sometimes when we are starting this journey, well, we're in continuation of our journey and we start a new chapter, a lot of people sometimes just see what's happening now, but it's been a lifelong journey of preparation for me to be where I am and for you to be where you are, and even though my path, like my connection to the sacred fire and the offerings and sacred reciprocity, all of this started, at the age of 25, 26. My previous experiences were trainings to really be prepared for this moment. And I think when we look at people that we see are doing something that we aspire to be or aspire to do, it's important to know that they had a previous journey to get to where they are. And so just being patient with ourselves in the process, because there was a lot of moments where, I did question the path, and it's like, is this really for me? And the self-doubt and the obstacles that come along the way. When I first started working with the medicine, shortly after, my brother, for me, is a huge teacher. He definitely makes me look into my shadow and challenges me like no one else in this world. But he also provides me with the safety net for me to trust myself and to trust my power. And I wasn't ready to trust my power at the beginning of my path. And so I remember he got his friend to give me a space in Bushwick to have a yoga studio. I'm also a yoga teacher, where we could do cacao ceremonies and cacao and yoga and different meditation practices. And I think they were charging me like $200 a month, like something ridiculous, that you don't find that in New York City. And when I was going in, there would be like 2 people that would show up, like maybe 5, but like 4 of them were my friends, so it was like nobody was really showing up to this. New York was very, very, very new to the idea of ceremony and cacao. And so I remember like feeling like the room was full every time that I was there. And it wasn't about the physical bodies that were there, but it was the connection to the spirits that I felt that were there to receive. And so in my mind, it was like imagining that this room was full. But what I come to understand now is like when my rooms then began to get full many years later, I still felt that same connection to, okay, it's the spirits that I'm connecting to, the spirits that were in that room before. And it didn't feel so overwhelming, because when you have a room full and it's, you're just stepping into that space, it's like, whoa, this is a lot. But, and especially I had like social anxiety, growing up, and even when I started walking this path. So to think about, I didn't teach yoga for 2 years while I had my certification, because I was terrified of getting in front of people. But with cacao, it was like I was guided. Like I don't think what I'm gonna say in ceremonies. I don't have a plan. I just show up, and then I close my eyes and I just go into this other space of myself where I let go of like all of those past experiences that created such intense conditioning, and I trust my heart. And I feel like that was like a huge training, that if we were to look at it back then, it's like it's a failure that I didn't have anybody in the space. But actually it was essential for me to trust my body, to trust my essence. So a long way of saying, like, I think when we are going into saying yes to our path, like that commitment brings a lot of tests for us to trust. And underneath whatever experience we're having, there's a layer that is assisting us to prepare for what we're committing to and what we're saying yes to. So trusting that process is essential.
Yeah, I just would love to witness you in that, like your journey of hearing how you had social anxiety and like all these spaces of, self-doubt, and then seeing you now, like is the complete transformation of this vocal and expressive. And I perceive you as very confident and in tune with yourself, with your truth. So like for everybody and anybody and myself, the medicine, that persistence, the showing up for yourself no matter what, and that's the continuous like showing up despite the growth, the edge, like the discomfort, keep on being present. And I have to say that, so during the pandemic, it was a very special time, and Cacao Laboratory offered a very sacred space during the time of quarantine and lockdown in New York, where we were there like every day. I remember for like 3 months, like showing up every single day at 11 a.m. You just like show up, and there's the community, even though everybody felt so isolated, like physically, but I would tune in and like, here's this community that's like new, but I'm intrigued by it. And what are they talking about? And the Mayan cosmovision that is coming up more and more. And that you were really one of the people that sparked me to trust my voice more, and to wake up my own expression. And you created such a beautiful like playground and playing field for these awakening souls to begin to trust themselves and trust their voice and practice their voice. Like I remember when I was very new to the circle, and you'd be like, very new, do you want to share? Do you want to repeat the question, or what's going on for you? And I was like, oh my God. But then going over that and meeting myself there at that edge of like, okay, what do I share? Did it make sense? Is it stupid? Like all these things that come up, but time and time again of you just holding this pillar of like, all right, what am I feeling right now? I'm sensing you, like step forward, come out, come forth. And I know you've provided that for not only me, but for many, many people in the community that you have cultivated from, as you're saying now, 2 people in the room with you to like all of the ceremonies that you would do in person, but the online circles that you hold. So the power of persisting is very, very, I'm trying to find the right word for it. It's very apparent in your embodiment and how you show up for your community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
It's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. I was married at a very young age. I was married at 21, and I remember when I had to walk away from my marriage, it reached a point where it was like I either try to save this marriage or I really step into my mission. The dynamic that we had created, I think, was unhealthy because we weren't listening to the true message of where we needed to go, and I had kind of like fell off my direction. But I was in a very like disempowered place when I left my marriage, and I had lost the awareness of who I was. And this was before I started, connecting with cacao, and very shortly before. And I remember feeling like I want to empower women, but like first I need to empower myself. Like I don't even know where I'm standing right now. And I feel that this journey has been a really beautiful gift of like the reason why I like understand when the other person is like showing up and they feel is like, wait, should I say something, like why is she calling my name or whatever else? It's like, I see you, like I feel you, I've been there, I know what it's like. And I know also like what it's like to be on the other side. Of course, I still have these moments of insecurities, but I think it's sometimes when there's these experiences of our life that carry a lot of wounds or a lot of pain, they can feel like shameful or like they make us incapable of certain things. But I think there's such a powerful medicine in those experiences, because it's like when you're holding the container for somebody, they want to know that they're being seen and that they're being held and understood. And when you've been there, it's like, and they can feel that. And so I think when we go through this path, a lot of the training and experiences that we have, especially at an early age or at the beginning of our journey, is just so we can hold that container to what we're committing to. So thank you.
I thank you for sharing that, and also your mission in the sense of empowering women. And I'd love to bring that back into the medicine of cacao, which is a deeply feminine fruit, where by the Mayan tradition has been considered all in the feminine energy, and the traditional ways of preparation goes back into really only women touching the cacao during certain times in the processing, and that it is deeply healing for that feminine nature within us, but also the feminine body. What do you feel like is, I kind of jumped a little bit ahead, but so at this time where we see cacao coming out more and more, and there's like a cacao ceremony here, cacao circle there, like it's really popping up a lot. And I believe that each plant has its own consciousness, but it also has its own agenda, kind of like it has its own mission that it's wanting to share. What do you feel at this time is the mission of cacao, or what is the purpose that she's really wanting to bring forward, or the message that she wants to bring forward that you perceive?
Oh, I love this question. I feel like there's a lot with her. One, so she is considered a plant master, at least in my eyes, and in the eyes of many who work, with different medicinal plants. And even though she is not bringing us outside of ourselves and having these extreme visions, but what I feel is she's really bringing us closer to home and connecting with the essence of love. Like physically, she is releasing phenylethylamine, which is the molecule that we release when we fall in love. There is the essence of bliss, like the anandamide. There's serotonin being released in the body, like the gut and the brain. So all of these very important compounds for us to come back to understanding what does it feel. In Spanish we say buen vivir, which is a principle also in the indigenous ways of how to live in harmony with the natural world, a life well lived, but those principles are very different in our modern society than they would be for the indigenous communities. But I think when she brings us to understand what it's like to be in those spaces of being in love, and I always say it's not the infatuation that we feel with someone else, it's just a layer of it. But like where we're meeting when we have these experiences of infatuation, it's a place that we meet, our spirits meet, it's a frequency. And because we've been taken so far away from this relationship to nature and this relationship to unconditional love, the first step is to be able to feel it and to understand it. And then we begin to embody it through different practices. So I feel like she's really coming out for us to remember why we are here and how do we commune with nature? How do we commune with the spirits that are all around us? She creates this hypersensitivity, for us to really listen to the messages and come back to understanding how to communicate with the natural world. And then there's also this layer of integration and preparation for ceremony. For a lot of our traditions, we have been disconnected from our ancestors mentally, and we've also been disconnected from the traditions, the rituals, the ceremonies. And I find that this movement of ceremonial cacao is bringing us to understanding the relationship to the sacred, and how to bring in like the importance of offering and sacred reciprocity and these fundamental ways of living in harmony. So she's here to really teach us how to come back to walking the sacred and walking the path in clarity with an open heart and a clear mind.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like she can save the world. She's saving us.
Yeah, definitely. Those are very beautiful reflections, and I thank you for your perspective on it, because that is something that keeps on coming up for me right now. It's like she clearly has a mission. There's something that's like that it is stirring and brewing within the consciousness of humanity and the earth, that it's her power is reawakening in that sense. And then seeing it correlated to the feminine and to nature, it's like, right, there's this call back to the old ways, or to the ways that are in harmony with our earth. And I think you really beautifully illustrated that, how she supports and connects that in our lives, and how we can begin to start to walk in that way, in a good way, with reverence and love for our Mother Earth that we only have one of right now. And that brings me to something else I'd love for you to deepen us with, which is you really love, correct me if I'm wrong, but like permaculture and all of that is something that's deeply, it's like a passion for you that I've witnessed and seen, of like this interconnection, and how do we really support and cultivate and honor this earth with reverence and love. And I'll just kind of put that out there. I know you go to the jungle to take in your wisdom and connect deeply with that heart. And if you want to bring it back to like the cacao farms where your cacao comes from, those are some seeds, and throw them your way. See what you do with it.
Yeah, I think it's very much related to what my last statement of like, I really think cacao can save the world, because with cacao, like there's so many layers, and the spiritual component is a huge factor. But there is also this aspect, as you mentioned, like with regenerative practices. Ceremonial cacao is a very, I see it as a fairly new concept. And, when we think about organic food, like our ancestors didn't have to say, this is organic, this is not. Like everything came from the land, and everything was, sacred. And so it was understood that ceremony, like any cacao that was on the earth back then, before we started manipulating the soil and manipulating the beans and like these different seeds, all of it was sacred. And of course, even the ones that are genetically engineered, they also carry a spirit, so we can't be that hard on them. But I feel that when this fairly new concept of ceremonial cacao grade, it's taking into consideration the process of regenerative practices, biodiversity on the land, agroforestry systems. So it's not just monocrop systems where you're growing the same type of cacao for the whole farm. There's other plants and different trees that are communing with the cacao tree itself. And so in this way, there's a type of, symbiosis that happens with the trees, and their sharing of information. And this allows, the different insects that are essential for the activation of the soil and the pollination of the different fruits to take place. So all of this is interconnected. And when we start isolating the trees, we start creating this harmony on the earth. And so I think, even if we're not into, again, the spiritual aspect of the plant, like ceremonial cacao is essential for the regeneration of the land and the soil. There's a series called Rotten, and they show this process of, in Africa is one of the largest exports of cacao. And because they've done monocrop systems for so long, they've demineralized the soil so much that the fruits were no longer giving, cacao. And so they had to go into protected sites, protected national parks, and started deforesting the land to grow cacao. And on paper, it says that those lands are still protected, but when you physically go there, according to this series, all of it has been deforested. So it's important to understand when we're choosing, what kind of food, and it goes with cacao, but really with everything that we're consuming. How are we being, active stewards of this land that is holding us, that is our home, that is our mother? And so I feel like cacao, directly and indirectly is bringing so many teachings on how to come back to these ancient practices. And going into the jungle has taught me a lot about the plant, although the Zapata tradition and like a lot of the Amazonian communities don't necessarily work with cacao like the Mesoamerican traditions do, like the Mayas, the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Toltecs. They have a very powerful relationship to how they view the world of spirit. The Zapata tradition says that we live to dream and we dream to live. And so they're able to see the world of spirit in such a clear way. And Manari has been helping me a lot in understanding cacao in such a powerful way of like getting to know her as a muse, as a co-creator, getting to understand how do I deepen my communication with her, and also what is my responsibility as a plant carrier and an assistant of cacao. What is my responsibility to, activate this embodiment of sacred reciprocity? What are the messages that we're sharing with the world? It's really important if we're carrying a plant like cacao to understand like what is the message that we're sharing on social media, because people are coming to us in the sense of trust. And so the message that we're sharing, everything that we say, it's an invocation. And so what are we speaking about? How can we be an assistant to the indigenous voices that are needing to be heard, not just for themselves, but also for society, for humanity to stay here on this earth? So the medicine of cacao is really teaching us how to be in harmony with ourselves and our environment.
Yeah, all those questions are like stirring up a big pot of transformation. I feel like that those are really deep questions. I feel like I want to go back and then listen to it and really reflect on in a deeper way of how to really answer that for myself. There are a few things that came up as you were speaking too well, the first thing that you're speaking about the monocropping and how it depletes and demineralizes the soils from which the crops grow. And this became very clear to me, like how this parallel is very similar towards humanity and how we treat, how we've become an individualized society in a way where we're very isolated. We're kind of monocropping our individuality or our personal experience on the world is very individual, and I find, at least where I live on this island, it is that space of interconnection is very underdeveloped. There's the mentality here is like hustle, or like go, 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 like, you know, keep, like, I can't think of any of the cliche words right now, but you understand what I mean. Like this idea that it's like a cutthroat world, and you have to, you know, take care of yourself first, and that the mirror of how nature is mirroring to us the way that we are treating ourselves as humans on this earthly plane, but then also how we're treating the earth is this very isolated and depleting, deeply depleting way. So I just wanted to bring that in, because that was came up very clearly as you were talking. And I would love for you to also talk a little bit about like how Cacao Laboratory's relationship with your farmers and what that looks like as you visit, and what does it look like for you? Sorry, the questions aren't coming at us like easily or concisely, but
it's perfect. I just want to make one last comment with regards to what you're sharing. I think it's such a beautiful reflection of, like, you know, that when we talk about when we eat, it's like when we are living well and understanding the rhythms, like the teachings of nature. Since we lost those teachings, we don't know how to create this symbiosis with one another. But I think it's, you know, collectives here, like I have a few collectives that I'm a part of like musicians and artists here in New York, and they've also been a huge part, and I didn't acknowledge them before, but I definitely should, because the static dance community, Ambrosia, which is an elixir place that is here in Brooklyn, Bae Collective, Junction, like these places gave me a space for me to share my voice and get to know my voice, you know, in these containers. And they helped me, and they trusted me, and they supported me. And when I wasn't so sure about my sound, like they would come and support me with sound and all these things. And that's how community is built. And that's how we can really find, like, not just survival, but thriving. And nature shows us in this way. This is why I love going to the Amazon and connecting directly with nature. There's so many teachings that Manetti shows us there of how the trees communicate with one another, how they're passing, you know, information, and how they support one another. And of course, there are certain trees that are competing for space, but overall, like, there's no competition, there's co-creation. And I feel there's Manetti was sharing with me yesterday about how plants work with in our interaction with us. When we are connecting with a plant, you know, our hearts open, like Cacao, for example. When we're connecting with her, she starts moving through us and becoming a part of who we are. And so in this exchange, it's not that we're just receiving from the plant. I mean, there's over 300 biochemical responses in the body that come from the medicine of cacao physically. But there's also so much emotional and mental, and as we're seeing, spiritual teachings that are there. But it's not that we're just receiving, we're also offering her an understanding of how we respond to her teachings. There's an exchange that takes place. And what Manetti says is that when this exchange happens, there's certain doors that open up in the world of spirit, certain windows, certain ways, and that's how the new wisdom activates. And I think this is so profound, because there's a lot of conversations that need to be had around cultural appropriation and around these certain important practices that have been so ancient. But hearing from Manetti this understanding of, like, these new wisdoms that are opening up, we're in a very important time where we're at a very important crossroad right now. So these kind of medicines and understanding how we interact and share with one another and open these new wisdoms, it's the new reality that we're activating for the world. This medicine is in almost every culture. So I think she carries a very important role within society, and how we carry that with reverence, with respect, with acknowledgement of the ancient teachings that have been carrying this medicine, that is for each individual to understand on their own. But with that being said, going into your other question, I love understanding the why about things and getting into the depth of things. So when we started working with cacao, we wanted to get to know our farmers. We wanted to, it's important for me to have a relationship with people that are, providing the cacao and being a part of this movement, because we wouldn't be here having this conversation if our farmers, weren't bringing the cacao to us and being able to share this medicine. And I think it's also very important for us, just like we encourage our community and encourage other people to step into their power, also encouraging the farmers to understand why it's so important to work with these heirloom strains. We work with cacao that comes from Ecuador. It's called Arriba Nacional, and it's an heirloom strain that grows in that region of the world, in the coast of Ecuador. We've tried cacao from many parts of the world, but I find that this one is the one that I connect with the most in the sense of flavor, but also her potency. And Ecuador has just a huge, place in my heart. So with my brother, we travel and we try to visit our farmers once a year and connect with them. One of the years that we went, we shared a video from different people in our virtual cacao circle, sharing how they connect with the medicine and saying thank you to them. So having that piece is like such a simple thing, but so profound for them to understand, like, we're not just mass producing your cacao for chocolate. There's an intention and a potency for the medicine that you're carrying. So it's really important for you to continue protecting these heirloom strains. We also ask them, what is it that they need? Because I feel it's not about assuming that we know what they need, but really checking in with them and understanding, like, how can we make it accessible for you to really work with these plants. It's very difficult to grow heirloom strains because they need a lot more management than, a CCN 51, for example, which is a genetically engineered fruit, or even for Forastero, which is another type of category of cacao. The criollo beans, these heirloom strains, are need a lot of tending, and for the farmers that are getting paid the same as CCN 51 for a genetically engineered fruit, for them growing a heirloom strain, it's hard for them to do that if they're getting paid the same. So we're working on certain initiatives to be able to pay way above fair trade, and then also giving a percentage of our sales to the farmers directly, and continuing to encourage them to be growing, the heirloom strains. My brother has also taught one of our farmers how to make chocolate and brought him a machine to make chocolate. So he's starting his own, little line back in Ecuador. So finding these exciting ways of co-creating together. It's not that, we just go there and buy their cacao, but building a harmonious relationship, activating the process of circular economy. Because really for us, sorry, my cup of cacao is getting me to talk a lot today.
I love it. Please keep it going.
But I feel a dream of ours with Cacao Lab, if you see the name itself, laboratory, it's an experiment on how do we bring these very essential principles of really supporting our environment to regenerate the way of life. And a circular economy, rights of nature economy, living economy is something really important and inspiring to me. And I feel Cacao Lab is model on how do we begin to bring these type of brands that are working in this type of circular economy. So circular economy meaning that everybody along the value chain is supported. Rights of nature economy meaning that they're seeing the process of economy as a living system. And rights of nature is one of the principles. It's actually in the Constitution of Ecuador and starting to be in a lot of the constitutions of South America, rights of nature, meaning the land has the right to exist, and it is the indigenous nations that have the say of the voice of the land. Putting into practice is still being worked on, but at least it's in the Constitution. And so I think, starting to really activate and bringing an active participation in whatever we are doing. I mean, whether you are working at an agency, a marketing agency, or you're an influencer, or you're working at a restaurant, like all of these components can be implemented, and starting to get proactive, I think is the way that we're going to begin to shift and heal these kind of systems. We're seeing that the traditional conventional way is falling apart. So my dream through Cacao Lab and Florecer has been to really start putting into practice some of these new ways of learning. How do we move forward from here? How do we reactivate a new dream where all of these principles are part of the essentials and not so much something that random people here and there are implementing.
Yes. I love it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I know you mentioned Florecer a few times, and I just wanted to bring that in for some of the people who are not so familiar with your community. That I think it's so beautiful that you are following your steady impulses and you're listening. You're constantly in dialogue with yourself and your soul and Mama Cacao and how to evolve and grow and how to reach. And Florecer is now this beautiful community that I don't know if you consider it something different or an evolution of Cacao Laboratory or a branch of it, but that you've been following this impulse to like, oh wait, something more is brewing, something more wants to come through. And from the outside, witnessing you like in the throes of inspiration and planting seeds and being like, this is coming, and now it's like really become this full blooming project that you're launching or have launched and starting. Very beautiful to witness you and someone really embodied listening to what wants to come through. What do I need? What can I bring forth? What do I want to? What's my passion? Because it really feels like another passion project from you as well. But I'd love you to deepen us a little bit more on Florecer and how that came about and what's moving there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your beautiful words. I see it as a branch of Cacao Lab. So Cacao Lab is an experiment, and it's been amazing to see it unfold. And a lot of what I was offering through our community and Cacao Lab was, not so much had to do with cacao. It's all related, of course, but I have been very, very blessed to have a lot of amazing, inspiring souls that come along my path, and I see that a lot of them don't have the time or interest to be sharing through social media. And so they're really passionate about something and super knowledgeable. And it's like some of the essential pieces to activate this, of what I'm saying, this new reality. And yeah, they're kind of just sharing in their own spaces, but they are needing a platform to really share it onto the masses. And what I see as Florecer, which means flourishing in Spanish, it's this community, this platform that allows us to put into practice, again, the new dream, the new reality. It's inspired by the title of a book from Charles Einstein, A More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. I feel it when I'm with the medicine, when I'm in communion with like the sacred fire in Guatemala or the spirit of the forest. I know that it's there, but there's a lot of people that haven't been able to see and tap into that medicine that is in the world. And I feel just like you were sharing, how you felt very empowered by the community to activate your voice. We're just not given those spaces, and we're not given the tools. And when I said yes to my path, all of the tools that I needed, all of the people that I needed to guide me presented themselves. So I feel that's part of my responsibility too, to make it accessible for those who are ready to say yes, So let's say that you want to start singing. Well, what do you need? You need somebody to show you the songs. You need someone to show you why you're singing. You need to understand your voice and how it moves through your body. For some of us that want to work with like the land, well, what do you need? You're in the city. Okay, we have a course starting up with permaculture. You don't need to be in like upstate New York or in the jungle to connect with nature. We can understand the principles, and then how do they begin to implement in our own lives. So it's a place for us to start practicing the embodiment of living in sacred reciprocity and starting to activate our dreams. Because as we see this system falling apart of like the political leaders, they're giving us an opportunity to activate our inner leader. But we also need to be provided the tools to do so, and the community to trust myself in, and the place to explore this. So that's what Flourishing Oneness, Florecer, is all about.
Mhm. Oh, very beautiful. I know I say that a lot, but there's a lot of beauty unfolding in this moment and in our time together. But what's coming in my awareness right now is like I'd love to put like all of the information of these what we've talked about in the chat, like in the space below. So like I'll put a link into the Florecer community and all of the things that we spoke about, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that are gonna be like, oh, I want to know more. Like how can I find out more? Yeah. And it's been a beautiful community to be a part of and see what's unfolding and all of the different courses. All of them are amazing, and I'm like, I want to do them all. Really. All right, I'm gonna feel in again to what wants to come forth at this time, what people maybe want to know. Yeah, can you speak a little bit more about the team that works with you? I know you are the co-founder and you have your brother that you mentioned before, and how he kind of fits into Cacao Laboratory, if you feel comfortable speaking on his behalf.
Yes, absolutely. So I feel like it's been such an amazing dance with my brother. He's the co-founder of Cacao Lab, and it's been so beautiful to see his background is in finance, and he was always an activist at heart. He doesn't talk about it much, but like I remember when he was like in high school, he would go to like different protests in Philly and things like that. So he has that vision for a more harmonious world, and that like trust that we don't need to settle for what the system is implying and the conditionings. But he also has a lot of understanding and knowledge when it comes to finance, which is definitely not my cup of tea. And so it's been really powerful just to be like the understanding our roles, which took a long time. But I feel that I'm like the activator of the medicine, the heart of the spirit, and he is like the one that can allow the vision to come through, and understanding like the models and the strategies. He's the one that's sending your cacao every day. He's the one that's like physically in the shop. He's the one that is constantly physically there and showing up and answering all the emails. And if there's anything that comes up, like he's there. We have 2 more team members, Jason, who's an incredible being that has really created a lot of systems for us to be able to stream some of the things that we were making ourselves difficult, through understanding the ways that the brand moves. It's interesting because my brother does have experience with starting other brands and things like that, but I think this is Cacao Lab is teaching us a lot, because there's so many moving pieces that come along the way, especially when you're working in such unconventional way, because we're trying to work in the way like least amount of waste possible, and being able to connect with what the farmers are needing, and being able to also serve the people, and like the type of product is so niche. So there's been a lot of trial and error, and my brother's been an amazing piece of that. And then we have Agostina, who's a cousin of mine. We haven't really brought investors or anybody that's outside of our family, because we want Cacao Lab to be a legacy that we leave for the future generations, for this earth, but also for our family, if we have children or things like that. So my cousin lives in Spain, and she decided to be, the representative in Europe, and she's opening up a physical location in Ronda, Spain, and starting to bring the medicine out to Europe. So we're in Europe, we're in Canada, we're here in the United States, and hoping.
Amazing. I know I have some European friends that are like, we're gonna get cacao, and I'm like, there is a place in Spain. So do you ship throughout the EU, which is like you do?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So I can let all of our European friends there know that it's possible to get Cacao Laboratory in Europe now. Yeah, it is not lost on me that I know you're not twins with your brother, but in the story of my creation story, there is Hunahu and Ishbaramkeh, and I think it's so beautiful that your brother actually holds the Noal of Ahu, and you have this deep connection to the Ish of, the connection with cacao, and you bring that feminine transmission through your embodiment of just being fluid and listening to what needs to be spoken in that moment. So in a way, the reflection of you being the hero twins and this embodiment and bringing this medicine forth with integrity, I just wanted to let that in.
I never saw it that way. It's so beautiful. Thank you, love, for that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would love to take this the last few minutes that we have together just to feel into anything that you wish to share, that what's really coming through you that you feel like would help people on their path, or what needs to be spoken at this moment.
Thank you. I feel it's really just the trust keeps coming through when you're sharing now. And in the Sapara, as I mentioned, the Sapara Cosmovision, they say we live to dream, we dream to live. So when we are having certain questions in this physical reality, we can tune into the world of spirit and ask the questions and let the spirit guide. And we're needing people to trust their hearts right now. There's this sign in the city that you can see from place to place that says protect your heart, but I think it should be changed to trust your heart, because you have, like, as we mentioned at the beginning when you asked me about how did your path start, there's a blueprint that we carry, and all the stars align for us to carry this blueprint. And so there's this soul contract for us to serve humanity in whatever role we're meant to. And when we connect with a sense of trust beyond what's happening here in the physical reality, beyond the obstacles, the illusions, the tests, we allow that blueprint to activate and to continue weaving our physical reality. So if there's a sense of mistrust that comes in, what is the medicine for you to come back to that remembering? Because the medicine that each one of you carry is essential for humanity, and not just humanity, for all living beings. And if I didn't trust my heart, Cacao Lab wouldn't exist. My brother would have never, come up with the idea of bringing in Cacao Lab forth. If I didn't trust my heart, we wouldn't be having, again, this conversation. So I think we may not know right now from the conceptual mind the change that we can bring to so many. And the moment that we trust our hearts, we again activate that blueprint to come forth. So thank you for
that wisdom. Yeah, trust is definitely something I've been working with throughout the past maybe 3 to 4 years. Just what is that trust, and how do you show up for yourself and begin to bridge the trust to self, right? Not placing the trust outside of ourselves, but really beginning that relationship and that inner listening to how do I keep that dialogue going and that dialogue open. Yeah, so I would love to just also say that this amazing cacao brand has a physical location in Kingston, New York. and is one of the cacaos that I first began connecting with in a ceremonial way when I started my journey consciously. About 3.5 years ago, I ordered the elemental blends, so earth, air, fire, and water, and my schedule was jam-packed, and every minute of my day felt like it was scheduled, but I decided at that moment to like take time for me, and I began inverting my schedule to be let me highlight all the time I have free, even if it's 15 minutes. I just like made it really bright green, and then I would take that time, like 20 minutes, and I'm like, sit down with my cup of Cacao Lab cacao, and I'd sit there and I just tune in, and it became this really deep and powerful avenue for me to connect with myself. And I started journaling, and that's when things started to shift, and my time began to be inverted, where I was having more time, and it began this really opening into my heart and my spiritual journey with more consciousness. I've again had, as you, many things in my life that have constantly been there in the spiritual way, but enabling me to really be grounded in my body and be embodied, to be able to bring my message and whatever is working through me out into the world in this form, in this format of now what is looking like Conversations with Cacao, because cacao is such a beautiful avenue to help our growth, to stimulate all sorts of things that are just moving in and want to be talked about. So I'm gonna plug your products real quick. You have beautiful, if you want to talk about the products that you have, right ahead.
Thank you. For that beautiful share. I'm so happy to know that the elements were assisting you in the space and getting you back. We have our regular kilo, which was the first product that we put out, and it's a month supply of cacao if you're drinking cacao every day. It's also great for like group rituals and things like that. And also if you want to work with creating your own blends. And then we also have our element bars that you were sharing about, and each one is supposed to be a journey. You know, we see our different products as an invitation for us to explore this connection. It's not so much just like this physical product. And so each element has a journey. In the bars, we show how to make your own cacao. There's also at the end guided sound meditation for you to connect to the spirit of each element, depending on what you're working on. And we found that these bars were great for somebody that wants to start trying cacao for the first time, or if you're on the road and you just kind of like to nibble on cacao instead of making it into a beverage. But then when I travel a lot, and I realize like if I'm staying in like the woods or like in the Amazon, sometimes it's hard to find like a board and be able to chop my cacao. So how do I simplify this process? And so we started creating these cans that are grounded cacao. And it's again the 100% ceremonial cacao, but it has the different infusions of our elements. And we also have that one without any elements, so like the regular 100% cacao as well. And then I believe that's all for now. We have a fifth element that we're announcing today, which I'm super excited about. And we also have we're gonna start working with, being able to bring different infusions. These have been our foundation for a long time, but I'm excited to start working with different plant allies, because I mean, if you see my kitchen, I have so many plant allies, like herbs and superfoods that I work with on a daily basis. And so I think cacao is such a beautiful facilitator to assist with all these different allies. And my brother's also making some incredible chocolate in Kingston, New York. So we're gonna be putting some of those chocolates on our website as well. But right now, you can only really get them in Kingston, New York.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a trip up there, and it really feels like Chocolat, like the movie, where it's, she moves with the wind and listens to the change of the wind, but then the chocolate is just like, I think she even talks about it in the movie of like, how certain plant allies like activate the heart in a different way, or like, I haven't watched it in a while, but it gives me chocolate vibes.
So funny because my brother's Instagram, no, I'm sorry, his WhatsApp profile photo is the woman from Chocolat. My mom was very confused when that first came on, but also the town Kingston, like it's very, very different. Like they don't understand what spiritual practices with cacao are, and we took over the Dunkin' Donuts of Kingston. So he's definitely creating a revolution up there.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I love that you added the chopped cacao with the elemental blends. It is I find it also very handy, and I really enjoy it. And then I just also wanted to mention in the bars you have this beautiful invocation. I don't know if you would technically call it an invocation, of like the grandmothers and grandfathers. And when I first started journeying with this cacao, it was like such a ritual to sit there and then read the invocation and then write the intentions, because you have the space in the bar to write the intentions. So all of mine are like full of all the intentions that I was writing for each time sitting with Mama Cacao, and the revolution that it stirred within me. So yeah, she definitely has a loud voice moving through our consciousness at this time. I will post all of that in the space below. So if you want to try Cacao Laboratory cacao, definitely go for it, and I'll post it below to make it easy. And I remember if I felt like there was something else that wanted to come through, but yeah, it floated away. But I would love to thank you for your time and coming together and really sharing your heart and giving people the opportunity to meet you in a deeper way and hear all of the wisdom and the medicine that you have to share. That's what it was, that you at Cacao Laboratory offers bi-weekly circles that you can check out. What's the best way to join for that if people are interested in that?
So through Cacao Laboratory, we have our lifestyle subscription, which is just subscribing for a monthly kilo of cacao, and that automatically gives you access to our circles. And if you wanted just to join the circles and have your own connection with cacao, you can also go through Florecer. So Florecer is the dream of mine. It's obviously supported by Cacao Lab, but it's more like a sister brand, a sister initiative. So we co-weave, in different ways, and this is one of them. Cacao Lab subscribers can always access our membership.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. And I've been a part of this community for, actually, it's been many years now. I can say it's been many years. But but to connect with cacao in this way, and the way that Florencia holds the circles is very beautiful, and giving you the opportunity to reflect upon different ideas in new ways. So we hope to see you there if you choose to join us. And thank you again so much for this time.
Yes. If it's okay, I would like to close this space.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Sorry about my change of background. My computer was like, I need some charge. So let's allow ourselves to bring one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly, and just closing the eyes as we begin to connect with the breath. Feeling our connection to the heart of the sky through the crown of the head. Feeling our connection to our roots through our sit bones, connecting us to the heart of the earth. And feeling our heart space open and receptive, allowing these two centers to unify. Taking a moment to give gratitude to the spirit of cacao for guiding us today, for inspiring this beautiful conversation. Thank you for the container, for this beautiful share. Giving gratitude to the wisdom keepers, the Maya tradition, who have opened their hearts and their guidance. Thank you to the Stapara, who have also opened their hearts and their guidance in this time. Thank you to the Lenape for receiving me on this land, and to the original nations of where you reside in this moment. Giving gratitude to all the sacred plants for providing us all of the sacred instructions on how to come back to the language and communion with the earth. And thank you to all the creative voices that are speaking their truth, their creativity, sharing their platforms, so we can come back and honor the changes that we have been calling in. Giving gratitude to the heart of the sky, le damos gracias al corazón del cielo. Giving gratitude to the heart of the earth, le damos gracias al corazón de la tierra. Giving gratitude to the heart of the sacred waters, le damos gracias al corazón del agua. Giving gratitude to the heart of the sacred fire, le damos gracias al corazón del fuego. Giving gratitude to the heart, to the spirit of the wind, le damos gracias al corazón del viento. Giving gratitude to the heart of life, the light that is within. Le damos gracias a nuestra luz interior, el corazón de la vida. Thank you. Adiós, Itzaha.
Adios. Thank you. And for those who don't know yet, Matios is the Mayan way to say thank you, and Huitzaja is of the Sapara Nation. So merging those two cosmovisions beautifully. Thank you so much for your time and your presence and your embodiment and your light.
Thank you, Alexandra. It's been such a gift to walk this path with you, and I'm excited to continue seeing how this all unfolds. And thank you for creating this beautiful container for people to get to know the medicine in this way.
Such a joy, in my joy. Thank you.